Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck. I teach parenting and family communications all through the lens of self-government. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the best parenting advice I received. People always come to me for parenting advice, but what they don't recognize is that I am basically a collection of a whole bunch of parenting advice and training and skills that I've received from other people. We all are, right? So I want to share with you 5 pieces of advice that really changed who I am as a parent. In fact, they contribute a lot to the tone of my home and a lot of the teachings that I share. After I had my son Porter and I was a busy mom with 4 small children, I remember I met with another woman. We were doing a little field trip because I was a homeschool mom, so pretty busy, right? And I met with this mom and she said, "Hey, how are things going with the new baby?" So I looked at her, I took a little deep breath and I said, "Pretty good, but I never get anything on my list done." And she looked at me and said, "Your list? What's on your list?" And I said, "I mean basic things. Things like the laundry, things like cleaning the bathroom, basic things." Now this mother had 8 children. She was also a homeschool mother, and her children were older than mine. And with all the love in her heart, she looked right into my eyes and she said, "Oh, well, you're making the wrong list." I said, "What? These are just simple things." She said, "No, you need to make a list of things you really will do, not all your hopes and dreams." She said, "If there's one thing that I know, it's that we should definitely make a list of the things that we will do." She said, "You have a new baby. You should be writing things on your list like feed the baby, feed the baby, feed the baby, change the baby, feed the other children, those kinds of things, because that's what you really are going to do every day right now." And I went, she's right. Why didn't I think of that? And how come I'm not acknowledging what I actually am doing? I'm doing lots of things, but because I'm such a motivated, driven person, I was putting things on my list that probably wouldn't get done for months. Now, that's not to say I didn't do my laundry for months, but I probably didn't fold it and put it away for quite some time. Washing it is one thing. Getting it all back in the closet and drawers, totally different. So if we have to pull it out of a basket for a little while because we're in new baby mode, then that's okay. I was so grateful to my friend Janice for sharing that bit of advice that only a seasoned mother would really know. I know I'm not the only one who has received parenting advice. Is there parenting advice that has changed your life? I invite you to put it in the comments below because maybe somebody who's watching this video can learn something from your parenting advice too. What have you learned? Maybe you didn't get this advice, but if you were to give a piece of parenting advice to somebody, what would you share based on the lessons that you've learned in your life? When I had Porter, I had a problem with my breast milk not coming in a good amount of time. It was probably the increased stress of more children, I don't know. But whatever it was a real labor, not just to get him here, but after the fact, because I was feeding and supplementing and then starting it all over again every single 2 hours, and it was like I would get maybe a 45-minute break where I wasn't doing something related to getting food into this sweet little baby. And it was wearing me out night and day. I was doing all of this, and truly I needed a little bit of a break or a rest or something. So I was meeting with my midwife for a follow-up appointment, and she said to me, "Nicholeen, what are you doing with the feeding? That's an awful lot of work that you're going through. And at this point, your breast milk should be able to catch up with what the baby needs." And I said, "Yeah, but it's just going to be so hard. Anytime that I try to just let him have just the breast milk, it's just not enough. And so then I have to supplement because otherwise he gets cranky." And she looked at me and she said, "What number child is this for you?" And I said, "Number 4. And she said, "Oh, then crying doesn't bug you, right?" Whoa. It wasn't even direct advice. She stated something that she knew needed to be true inside of me for me to get through this time. So I was going to have to let him be cranky, she said, for maybe a couple of days. And it was going to be hard on the ears and maybe even hard on the eyes to see a sad little baby for a couple of days. But when he was trying and trying to get more out of me, and that increased crying would then bring more milk into my system and would then have enough for him. And you know what? She was right. And all of a sudden I got more sleep. But what a great thing for me to remember for my entire life. Crying doesn't bug me. Sometimes the needs of my child outweigh what I feel emotionally with the child at the moment. And so I've got to keep my head clear. What do I know versus what am I seeing? The two things might not necessarily match. And I've got to go with the truth versus just those visual cues that could get a little confusing sometimes. Thank you, Julie, my midwife. My friend Janet and I were talking one day about self-government, and she was learning some of the skills of self-government that I teach. And in particular, we were talking about media choices for the children and how there needed to be set boundaries in place for the children. And Janet shared one of her bits of parenting advice with me that I felt like really added some good detail to what I was doing with my own children in trying to create boundaries. And so I grabbed it up and thought that advice is one I'm going to hold on to forever. So when we were talking about setting boundaries for the children, Janet said, well, this is just like fruits and vegetables and children asking for candy. So I call it Janet's junk food principle. So Janet said, our children, when they ask for candy again and again and again, we know as parents that that means they've had too much candy, and we need to be giving them carrots and apples and cucumbers and other things that are healthy for them because maybe they've had too much of a good thing. Same thing goes when our children are asking for digital again and again, or maybe playtime with a friend again and again. Instead of immediately thinking because they're asking for it, they must need it, as parents we should be thinking, could it be that they're asking for this because they've had too much of it and they actually need us to help balance out their time by having more connected family bonding time and doing things with them instead of always giving them some sort of device or person that's going to divert their attention for a while? Super wise, Janet. So I followed Janet's junk food principle. In fact, I was following it before she brought it up to me, but now I know why it rings so true to set those limits and boundaries for my children. Another tip I learned was actually from a credit card commercial. So do you remember those credit card commercials where they would say, going to the circus with my child cost this much, buying cotton candy cost this much, and they would list all these things because it was a credit card commercial. But then at the end it would say something like, making a lasting memory, priceless. Well, I agree with that commercial in that when we make a really good memory with our children, it's priceless. However, I don't agree that it requires a credit card or a lot of money to make a lasting memory. In fact, one of the memories from my life actually happened with my own mother, and she didn't have to give this advice, she just did something that changed me forever. I had a busy mother. In fact, my father was a school teacher, so mom would try to bring in some extra money by tending other people's children after school hours. So I had to often compete to get some of her attention, which meant many days I was sitting in my room playing by myself. And it was a little lonely, but I learned to deal with it. Well, one day mom came to the door of my room and she looked at me playing with my Barbie doll and she said, "Can I play with you?" I was amazed and surprised and so excited that she would ask that question because what she didn't know, I'm going to cry a little bit, but what she didn't know was that in my heart, that's what I wanted more than anything else, was to play with my mom. And so I said yes. And for maybe 20 or 30 minutes when other children were napping, me and mom played dolls. We played Barbies. And it created such a magical memory in my heart that I vowed right then and there that I would be the type of mom who would play with her children. who would create memories with her children, memories that would stick and that would meet the things that they wanted most in their hearts, that I wouldn't forget, that my mom found something that I needed in my heart that day. So make memories with your children. That was a piece of advice that came from a credit card commercial combined with what my mother really did for me that made me a completely different mom. A more fun mom. My next tip has to do with when you're talking to your children, praising your children or correcting your children. You should look at them in the eyes. Years ago, when I started doing treatment foster care for troubled teens, and I started learning all of these different skill sets that I was going to be teaching these troubled youth that came to my home, I noticed that for many of the skill sets that were in this huge book of skill sets, there was one thing that was common with many of them, one step to a skill. And that was the step number one, oftentimes said, look at the person. And I thought, that's pretty significant, isn't it? Because then the person could say, well, I'm ready to be taught, or I'm ready to be instructed, or I respect you enough to look at you. And that's why they would look at you. But as I started parenting these foster children and my own children over the years, I realized that look at the person was even more significant than I originally thought. Your eyes are the windows to your soul. When there was a child who was crying or going out of control, having a tantrum or something, I would look at them in the eyes and I would say the words that I had planned to say to them to help them through the hard time. But I would also think, I love you. I love you. And I would send that love through my eyes to them. Those were the 5 tips, but I actually remembered that there's another one that I would love to share with you. I have to thank my junior high vice principal, Mr. Lloyd Naylor. I don't even know if he's still living, but I have to say that Mr. Naylor really did give me some advice at a time when I was in 9th grade that ended up changing my life and who I would become as a mother. So one day I was passing Mr. Naylor in the hall and he said, "Hey, Nicholeen, how are you?" And I said, "Pretty good. How are you, Mr. Naylor?" And he said, "I'm happy, thank you." That shocked me. Who says that? So at lunch, I approached this World War II vet and I said, "Earlier today, you asked me how I was and I said, I'm pretty good, and because that's what people say. And then I asked you how you are and you said, I'm happy, thank you." Nobody says that. Who says that? Why did you say that? And he said to me, "Because I'm happy." And I said, "Yeah, Mr. Naylor, but every day doesn't go perfect. Surely there are some times where you're not happy. What do you say then? And you can't be happy all the time." And he said, "Why would I choose to be any other way?" That blew my mind. Why would I choose to be any other way? I recognized I had heard a truth from this wise man. And so throughout all of my years of parenting and interacting with other people, when people ask me, "How are you doing?" I say, "I'm happy, thank you." Because I remind myself, why would I choose to be any other way? Mr. Naylor told me that when people ask you that simple question, that's a great opportunity for you to tell yourself, I choose happiness right now, even if I hadn't chosen it before. So you know what? Parenting's hard, and they wake up in the night, and they sometimes have squabbles with each other. They sometimes have an attitude problem. So how about choose not to take it personally? Choose to be happy. Choose that it's okay. Work on your calmness so that you're ready to help them do all the learning that they need in those situations because you're not reacting. Speaking of calmness, speaking of happiness, there is actually a skill set of calmness that I created for myself years ago. And I would love to get you introduced to calmness and how you can be more calm in your parenting. In fact, if there's something that I could give you as my greatest advice, it's actually contained in my course about teaching self-government. There is an introductory course. It's a free mini course that I would love to share with you, and it is called the Calm Parenting Toolkit. There is a link below this video to the Calm Parenting Toolkit. Click that link now and you can start on the road to more good parenting advice, especially related to your calmness, so that you can be prepared to be happy and handle anything that your child needs you for.